All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the LANO first ever virtual conference with lots of, little technology blips here and there, but we're still here. And we're going to give it another go with a fantastic panel, our last event for today. So I am so really delighted that everybody was able to join us and eager to join us. And I'm going to introduce our panelists from all over the state, joining us from different areas. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, talk a little about themselves, and then we've got some great topics to share. Once again, just some housekeeping. Please, if you have any questions, just type them on in the chat, and we will get to those at some point. If you have any issues, get kicked out for any reason, go back to your homepage and log in again, and we'll put that information back in there of contacting Mary Ellen if you have a real problem. We want to keep you in. But we're going to kick this off. I think a lot of you are probably very familiar with the Associated Fundraising Professionals organizations around the state. So I am going to start and kick things off and introduce Josh Fertitta. Let him tell us about himself.
Hi, can y'all hear me? Okay. Yes, thanks, Jill, for having me today. I'm Josh Fertitta. I am the current president of the AFP, Association of Fundraising Professionals, Greater New Orleans chapter. And that term is for a year. And so I started my term last December. And we had a wonderful go of things and we still are having a great go of things. COVID has definitely been something that we've contended with. But thank you for having me here. My professional day-to-day life, I am the statewide program manager for SNAP Employment and Training. That's a federal program that provides workforce development dollars to agencies to support SNAP participants in obtaining and maintaining employment. And so I work for the state, but my background is in fundraising, nonprofit strategy development, major gifts, and government funding. And I'm just happy to be here. So thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Josh. All right, Danny Fields, take it away.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Danny Fields. I'm the current past president of the Greater Baton Rouge chapter of the Association of Fundraising Professionals. I'm also the president and CEO of Daniel J. Fields Consulting, LLC here in Baton Rouge. I specialize in philanthropy advising, business development, public affairs, corporate social responsibility practices, and organizational leadership development. Prior to launching my consulting career, I also served about 14 years at Our Lady of the Lake Regional Medical Center in Baton Rouge, primarily fundraising for Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital, and have been very involved in leading major planned giving, annual giving, and data and stewardship programs. And so I look forward to this conversation, and thank you for having me, and look forward to the conversation.
All right, I'd love to welcome Mark Judson. Mark.
There we are. Am I unmuted now? Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. So my name's Mark Judson. I am the president of the AFP Lake Charles chapter, which is basically Southwest Louisiana. And I also please try not to be intimidated by my complex graphics, but I am the executive director of the Southwest Louisiana Law Center. The Southwest Louisiana Law Center is a nonprofit law firm. We handle civil matters only. We do not handle criminal matters, and so we charge our clients on a sliding scale. We charge about 1/3 to 1/2 of what the local market charges for a similar type of service. So we assist the under-resourced with civil legal needs. That's what we do. And I'm delighted to be included in this panel. I also happen to be in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and in addition to talking about perhaps small shop and the benefits of AFP as I see them with respect to a small shop, we may also talk a little bit about disaster response and our experiences in dealing with disasters as well. So I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for including me on this panel.
Thank you, Mark. And finally, from North Louisiana, Lynn Stevens, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, everybody. Like Jill said, I'm Lynn Stevens. I am actually the Director of Workforce Development at Goodwill Industries of North Louisiana. So we focus on workforce development efforts up here, job training, job placements, you name it, we pretty much do it up here, and we have great partnerships that we do that. Not only in charge of just developing workforce programs, but funding and marketing as well falls in my lap. So it's one big job for one little person. And we cover all of the North Louisiana territory. So I'm somewhere just about every day. So that's a little bit about me. Looking forward to, I hope there's some people from North Louisiana joining us today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, like we said, we thought these are great organizations around the state. I've been involved, and also I neglected to reintroduce Christian Beatty, Associate Director of LANO, who's also a member of the Baton Rouge AFP. Through my years and experiences in various nonprofits, I've always enjoyed AFP luncheons, speakers, the networking, gotten a lot out of it personally. It's just a fantastic organization. And of course, you know, I know that many of you probably on this session are members of AFP, or at least have some familiarity. And if you're not, I'd encourage you to get involved. So I'm going to let our panel talk about their AFP experience, what they get out of it, and everybody's got kind of a specific topic to address. So I'm going to kick it off with you, Josh.
Sure, Jill. To kind of let everyone know where New Orleans is at, the Greater New Orleans chapter, we have about 220 members. And our goal, you know, our day-to-day, our year has typically been a lot of our events. We have National Philanthropy Day, which is typically a very large event for us and a large fundraiser. We also have our June conference, which is in June. And we decided to forego both of those events, cancel them. We didn't even reschedule them this year, knowing that we were going to have challenges with COVID, social distancing, and all the unknown variables that are required to pull off those events for AFP. So we kind of allowed, our strategy for this year has been to allow those events, those big events, to kind of take a back seat to our monthly programming. And we prioritized our programming on a monthly basis, as well as just networking opportunities. So what we first did in COVID was we immediately brought everything to the virtual platforms through Zoom. And we just kind of noticed very quickly, looking at the data, looking at the number of people members who were actually going to monthly luncheons on Zoom, we really and pulling from the actual anecdotal data, hearing feedback from other board members and other members of AFP, we decided to add in some networking opportunities. So now we are just having casual lunchtime and afternoon, evening kind of networking social hours with no real prescribed topic, but one host who can kind of work with everyone on the platform and just kind of feel the room and do their kind of own thing, because we really noticed that although we play an integral role in professional development of all of our members, we realized that the thing that we all missed most about AFP was the informal time when we were getting our plate of food for our luncheon, or we were catching up at the table. What really drew us together was each other, not always necessarily the professional development topic. So we have really prioritized those networking sessions, and we're getting 20 and 30 people on those sessions, those networking sessions. And it's really helping us to fulfill our membership, our responsibility to our members, and really filling that professional development gap. One thing that we have done as well is we're not charging for our luncheons. We don't have the cost. We don't have the overhead. And so even though we're not generating revenue through our conference or National Philanthropy Day, we don't have the expenses associated with the luncheons. We do have our administrator. So we are focusing on those professional developments and making sure that they're accessible to all members for no charge. For members of other chapters or folks who are not yet members of the Greater New Orleans chapter, we're just asking a small $10 monthly fee for our programming, and that's for the monthly PDs. The networking is available to everyone. And so we've really this strategy has been nothing really formal for us. It's just been let's see what are the needs within our membership and pivot as those filter and develop as this whole new world progresses with us. So that's where we're at, and we're really getting a lot of good feedback from our members that this is the right direction. One of the areas that we're addressing right now is how do we really intentionally integrate IDEA into our practice. So what does IDEA look like for inclusivity? For those of you who aren't aware, IDEA for AFP is our Inclusivity, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility Initiative. And so how do we bring all of those 4 pillars of into our practice? What does that look like for our board? What does that look like for our monthly meetings? What does that look like for our networking, mentorship, and so on and so forth? So that's what we're working on right now. But like I said, we've really been prioritizing that networking and just the opportunity for people to connect. We really recognize that this is a time that it's just very difficult, and we want to make sure people, especially in Louisiana, where everything is a 2-degree relationship, that people have opportunities to really connect.
That's great. Thank you so much, Josh. Danny, I know you've been involved with AFP Baton Rouge for a long time and past president. Put you on the spot now to give us some good guidance and advice on things you've done and learned.
Thank you, Jill. I've been a member of AFP Baton Rouge since 2007, and really it's become one of the most valuable professional organizations that I've been a part of, primarily because of a couple of the reasons that Josh alluded to with the professional development. Certainly we have a great educational program each month that is well coordinated by our board. At the same time, I would say some of the most valuable resources that I've received from the chapter are in the membership itself. It's great to be aligned with a chapter of peers around the field of philanthropy, to where you can share best practices, have ideas bounced off a sounding board of people that are living day to day in that field of work, and at the same time use that network as an opportunity for mentoring, as both a mentor and a mentee. One of the great programs that has really developed over the last several years is our mentorship program, in helping to engage both young fundraising professionals in our area, as well as helping keep our seasoned, that's my nice way of saying older, fundraising professionals actively engaged in what's current and new with fundraising. Another very valuable resource that I found with the AFP chapter dealt specifically with training for the CFRE exam. I'm a CFRE. That's for those not familiar with that term, it's a certified fundraising executive. It's a credential held by those that have gone through additional training and development in the philanthropy field, that also demonstrates to donors and stakeholders a commitment to a higher degree of knowledge with fundraising, as well as a commitment to ethics in fundraising. And so we have a phenomenal CFRE training program in which we have those that have already participated in the CFRE program. They have helped organize different training sessions, mentoring sessions, helped provide study guides that allow our fundraising professionals that are considering taking their professional expertise to the next level. And so that's been a really great added value of being a member of AFP. But then again, it's really the value is so comprehensive of all of the professional development, the mentoring, and the training centered around ethics as well. And I think Mark is going to allude to some of that in his presentation. But I cannot stress how valuable that the AFP chapter has been over the course of my career. And I would encourage those that are considering being a member to not just be a member, but also to get actively engaged with committees and leadership service to the organization, because that will only increase your value.
Great. Thank you so much, Danny. I know if you're interested in the CFRE, reach out to Danny. I'm sending them all your way, Danny. But there are a lot of people I know that are willing to help with that. A great, absolutely great certification program. Before I go, I'm going to go to Mark, but Lynn, just give me a thumbs up. I think your chapter does include Monroe, right? All of the North Louisiana parishes.
We do. And yeah, we do cover all of North Louisiana. So
great. Sarah, there's the answer to your question. Get involved. All right.
Me.
Yeah. Mark, tell us about what's going on in Lake Charles.
All right. Well, a couple things. I think I'll talk a little bit about AFP, if that's okay, and then we'll get into Lake Charles. But, the Southwest Louisiana Law Center is a small shop, right? And in fact, Josh, I've been here for 10 years, and I attended a NOLA June conference on a LANO scholarship when I was brand new into the nonprofit biz, and I'm an executive director, right? We have at that time, we had 7 full-time staff on our entire organization. And so I go to this session at the New Orleans meeting called Fund Development for the Small Shop. And the first thing they did is they went around the room and they said, okay, how big is everybody's shop? And there was one that said 3, some said 5, some said 10. I thought, well, maybe I'm not that small after all. Then I realized they were talking about the entire fund development department. So when I realized they were talking about the entire fund development department, I said, ooh, we really are a small shop, because our entire shop was only 7 full-time people. Then I realized that I didn't know what I didn't know. Also have been to the Baton Rouge AFP, and they used to, I don't know if they still do this, Danny, but they used to have an education session before the luncheon. And I actually got some training on a comprehensive fund development plan. So that was really wonderful. So from a small shop, I'm the executive director. We truly don't have a full-time designated fund development staff person. So I find AFP membership very valuable because, one, it introduced me to concepts I would have no idea that existed. And also, being in Southwest Louisiana, we have an opportunity to go over to the Houston AFP Ask the Expert session, and that is a wonderful thing to go to as well. So I recommend, if you're interested in AFP, go to an AFP meeting. Even if you're not interested, I'm inviting you to get interested and go to an AFP meeting. Very quickly, benefits I find are what I call street cred, the code of ethics, a donor bill of rights. It's international, and there's even membership discipline. I'm not saying membership discipline's a big deal, but you can get kicked out of AFP if you violate the standards. And the education that I just described is very valuable. Also, National Philanthropy Day. This day, it's Thursday, November the 14th. Am I right? I think I've got that right. In any event, we're still trying to figure that out, but it's a wonderful opportunity to celebrate philanthropy. It's a time for all the organizations to recognize their philanthropists, to promote philanthropy. And of course, everything everybody else has said is wonderful, the networking and the sharing of best practices. And like Charles, we are a small organization. We have about 15 total members. And we welcome opportunities for CFREs from New Orleans, from Baton Rouge, from Alexandria, from Monroe to come and visit us and to come and lecture to us when COVID will be lifted, and help them continue with their CFRE maintenance hours. And it's just, we share a calendar. You know, when I first joined, I was concerned about competition, and that's not the case at all. It turns out that we all benefit, and we all share our fundraising calendars. We all share our event calendars. That way we don't have duplicative or competing events. And that's just one example. We even had a session where we had a local philanthropist come and address our group and told us his version of do's and don'ts. So it was really, it's really just a great thing to be a member of. Jill, would you like for me to talk about hurricane stuff, or do you want to move on to other topics? Okay, thumbs up on hurricane stuff. I'm going to talk about in general. If you're from Louisiana, you know what a hurricane is. Most of you have probably been through hurricanes, damages, recovery, the loss of power, loss of electricity, and the other usual damages. So I'm going to spare you the things that we are all that we all know about generally. Recent observations that I might wish to share with the entire group, and this is probably more from my executive director hat than my fund development hat, but is that everybody must have standard operating procedures. If you don't have written standard operating procedures, get written standard operating procedures. Even if they're very simple, have them. Have a bad weather contingency plan or disaster recovery contingency plan. Have one written in advance. Review it every year with your YAG or your year at a glance calendar. Have a year at a glance calendar where review of the emergency contingency plan is reviewed and updated. Communication with staff, update our IT backup of records and sensitive information. How are we preserving our records? Are we in the cloud? Do we have a physical server? Do we have external hard drives? How are we going to keep our information in the event? All those things need to be thought out and planned in advance. The big deal with us has been internet connection. That has been the biggest problem. Without naming company names, if you have the opportunity for underground fiber optic cables for your IT, do it. If you do not, change. That is my recommendation based on our experiences. So internet and telephone have been very, very slow. In fact, last Monday was our first, what is today, Tuesday? That's another thing. You lose time when you're in a hurricane recovery. You have no sense of time. Oh, and you grow a beard. You also grow a beard. The women typically don't, but the men grow a beard. So your connectivity is very important. Patricia Philman, who is a member of our chapter that works for the Southwest Louisiana Center for Health Services, she put out on, oh, by the way, Facebook becomes very important. It's your sole means of communication. She said that she had electricity in a hotspot, and she invited anyone to come to her house to enjoy them. And she also said that's her new pickup line. So things are just different when you have no power and you have no electricity and you have no internet, and you have to think all that through as to how are we going to communicate. And then, of course, you got to remember that your board members are probably recovering as well, and your donors are probably recovering as well. And if you depend on recurring revenue as a part of your operating revenue, you have to have plans for that as well. All of these things need to be incorporated into a written standard operating procedure and disaster recovery plan. Other random observations, have a yellow vest and a hard hat, and you can do anything or go anywhere in a recovery situation. You are allowed access anywhere. Nobody stops you if you have on a yellow vest and a hard hat. I could go on and on, but I would welcome questions, and I would like to hear from our other presenters.
Thank you so much, Mark. I'm going to toss it to Lynn. Anybody have some questions, please put them in the chat. And there's lots of great information about AFP in the chat. But Lynn, tell us what's going on in your area.
Yeah, so I neglected to say that I actually am the president of the North Louisiana chapter. When I introduced myself, I just got so discombobulated with technology and looking at myself in the Zoom lens that it knocked me out of the water, I guess. So I actually inherited the president's role, though, this year. Our current president-elect actually was supposed to be the president. He had a heart attack last year. And so I inherited that role. I had been with AFP for, I'm going to age myself here, 2005 through many states because I'm new to Louisiana. I have only been here since 2007 now. And so I've served in every capacity there was, except the president role. So God said, ha, 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 guess what? He's going to have a heart attack and you're now going to be president. So with that being said, I have enjoyed it very much. I've learned a lot, even though I've done a lot of different roles through different capacities and different positions. I've learned a lot about the organization and a lot about my members. We're actually what they consider a small chapter, not as small as Mark. Mark has, I think he said 12. We cover right around the 50 member mark. So not as big as Josh, not as big as Danny, but they consider us a small chapter in size of. And so what I'm going to touch on a little bit is what makes AFP different and why I really appreciate it is the ethical standards that AFP does put out. It's actually the code of ethics for fundraisers. I'll go back to Danny's presentation real quick. He said he was a CFRE. He's one of 6,800 in 20 countries, but there are 95,000 fundraisers just in the US alone. So if you think about that, we've got a lot of fundraisers out there that may or may not be doing it right or know about the code of ethics, and hopefully, we have a lot of ways to grow. So that's, I think, one way we are different and one thing you can learn by being a part of the Association Fundraising Professionals. The code of ethics, was formed clear back in the 60s, has been adapted a couple different times or amended, and so is a living document. It really gives us the ethical standards that we all really need to abide by as fundraisers. What I will say is, it's broken down into 4 components. I'm going to go through them real quick. But what I would like to say is, what I appreciate it is really kind of gives me guidance. A lot of what you've heard already is the people have touched on mentorship and advice, and the commandership you get really becomes an important thing when you think you have an ethical dilemma. Because I can't tell you how many people I've picked up the phone and said, this just doesn't feel right in my gut, and let me hear your perspective. I think Danny alluded earlier, there is actually kind of AFP Global, that's our international organization, actually has a page on their webpage called Enforcement and Sanctions. And it's people that have violated, there are true fundraisers out there or true organizations out there that have violated a standard. And so that really does exist. And I honestly can tell you, I've actually had to report somebody, and they are on that list. And it took me a lot of prayers and a lot of phone calls to people out there to make sure I really felt like they had violated the standard before I really made that call. Again, the standards are broken down into 4 components: public trust, transparency, and conflict of interest. Those sound like really easy, right? But if you think about it, public trust, how many people today are giving money to charities and how many are trusting charities has declined significantly since the year 2000. And that, I think, a lot deals with social media, because if one does it wrong, you all do it wrong, right? Transparency, making sure you have clear boundaries and clear expectations on both you as an organization, your staff, your board, and of the donor. I think that's an important thing. And conflicts of interest. The second section is solicitation and use of funds. How are you using your funds? Are you very transparent? Do you do what you say you do? Do you return dollars if you don't need the dollars? I think that's an important piece that a lot of people we hear about. Confidential and proprietary information. So if you leave an organization, you can't take your donor list with you. That's a no-no. And I see a lot of people like call the same donors. It's kind of a no-no and can be violated. Confidentiality. If you use a mail house, you better make sure that they don't sell your information. So if you're giving your donor letter to a mail house to solicit, and get it out, you better make sure that they're not, because you have to publicize that they could potentially give your list or sell your list. I've seen a lot of organizations get hit with, violations with that. Confidentiality, that's the third section, and proprietary information. We all know about confidentiality, but how many of you share your donor list with your board? How many really needs to share your donor list with the board? I think that's something we have to think about, and we talk about at AFP a lot. And then the fourth section, which is probably the one that I think has the most common questions, or the things that we see a lot up here, and it's because it's really vague, and it's about compensation, bonuses, finder fees. If you want to hire a grant writer, you got to pay a grant writer. You can't really do a contingent basis. We get a lot of questions about that. Finder's fees. If you find a six-figure donor, you can't get paid to find the six-figure donor. You can earn bonuses as fundraisers. That's a misconception out there that you can't. So there's a lot of standards around that. And so I think that's one thing that separates us, and why I'm a proud member. The North Louisiana chapter, we're growing. We actually have a scholarship. So whoever's on here from North Louisiana, we're giving away a scholarship next month. So if you're interested, reach out to me. We can get you signed up and go on. This is National Ethics Awareness Month for AFP. And so for us, I think that's the most unique thing that really makes it delineates a little bit of difference from LANO. I think LANO provides a really great segue and information base, but why they should work together with AFP and really make it an all-inclusive, why you need to join both.
Thank you, Lynn. And I agree. I think, AFP is just another organization that LANO definitely should be partnering with closely. And we have been, many of you, I hope, filled out our surveys we sent over the summer. We've been really assessing where the direction LANO is going, and kind of refining what we're going to be doing in the, advocacy, connectivity, and education space. So stay tuned as we kind of roll out kind of maybe a new look here soon. But AFP is a natural partner. Nonprofits can't exist without fundraising. AFP is a great organization, and everybody's been sharing great information in the chat about CFRE, ethics information, AFP information. I just look at it as, we all need help. We all need resources. And we talked yesterday in a session about collaboration. Funders are looking for collaboration. They're looking for nonprofits to work together to solve the problems in our communities. And they're asking that more and more in, grants and donations and other things. So this is just another way. That was kind of the idea behind this panel. Josh, I want to reach out to you. And I think, I feel like we were talking when we were on before the session really started about just how strange the year has been, of course. And while we're in some ways more connected, Danny was talking about being on calls with people across the country this morning. We are. In some ways, I think it's maybe harder to have a pulse on what's going on. So what's the feeling in New Orleans in the fundraising community? Obviously, all of us are worried about our economy. I'm worried about the economy of New Orleans without restaurants and hotels and conferences and festivals. And so tell us kind of what the feeling is and what your community's done around that. Oops, we can't hear you, Josh. We can't hear you. Well. Oh, welcome back, Josh. Let's see what's happening. Might be your AirPods. They sometimes are a problem. No. Can't hear you.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry, it wasn't the AirPods. It was the website for some. Anyway, I think collaboration is the key word, Jill. In that, I think everyone, Ganoff did Greater Orleans Foundation did a survey in March and April about the nonprofit sector. I don't want to pretend to know some of those numbers verbatim, but a lot of, I think almost 1 in 5 jobs in New Orleans is supported by the sector, the nonprofit sector. And there was a lot of concern. That survey also revealed concerns around financial stability, especially with private funders and the lack of support from donors and just the economy in general. So I think there's a lot of concern, and folks are trying to figure out how they can best work together from one agency to the next. But I think the most important thing is I think there's an increased scrutiny on through that collaborative question about how can organizations work together, but how can we work together to better serve our clients, to better serve the needs of the folks who our programs are really developed around. So I think there's this renewed sense of getting people connected more deeply to the work and making sure that we're really scrutinizing every dollar that's being spent and making sure it's directly tied to the client experience in some way. So I think that's generally kind of the read. I think it's a little, my personal perspective is a little skewed because in my day-to-day job, I have control over a lot of money, and I'm almost kind of a funder in a way. And so I talk to other funders, and there is that collaborative spirit. So I'm not necessarily, kind of on the ground floor, but from what I hear from my other colleagues in New Orleans is that there is a lot of concern about sustainability, but that collaboration seems to be the common thread, and making sure that we're all doing the best that we can for our clients.
Thanks, Josh. Danny, I'm going to ask you sort of similarly in Baton Rouge, and now that you're kind of on the consulting side, so you're dealing with clients, what are you hearing from them? Any kind of trends? I mean, obviously we've all got, very similar concerns. Any, creative ideas you're hearing out there?
Yeah, so certainly this pandemic is impacting all of us in the same way that we're all having to figure out how to be creative, converting a lot of our activities into virtual, and certainly representing the the element of fundraising that deals with engagement and events and those sorts of things. I think a lot of organizations are in fact getting creative in those areas. I think where you'll note different organizations having more success than others is really in terms of communication right now. There are organizations that have from the very onset of this pandemic, early on in March, the very successful ones, they maintained a level of constant communication with their donors, all of their stakeholders, from board level all the way to team members to donors and community participants in their organizations. They maintained a thorough communication about how their organization was responding to the pandemic and keeping their focus on their mission at hand. So that contrarily, the ones that haven't been as successful are those that have kind of been in a wait and see and adapt when necessary, but they're a little bit behind the gear. I think also taking the opportunity of this pandemic, when there are a lot of uncertainties right now, as an individual fundraiser, if you're thinking about yourself as a professional, use this opportunity to really take advantage of some of the educational opportunities that are out there. Great resources with LANO, great resources with AFP, but certainly use this as an opportunity to look at ways to advance yourself as a professional fundraiser, explore the options for CFRE, a certification that I failed to mention earlier, but I know we've got some participants from AFP Baton Rouge that are that hold this credential, the Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy, the CAP credential. Talk to some members of your chapter that hold that credential and learn how you can utilize that to better serve your organization and your donors. And then also really take the time to as an organization internalize and look at your systems and operations to where really everything starts with having good data in your organization. And so if your organization is not capturing good data on your stakeholders, your donors, you're not able to necessarily grow a robust giving program. And that's more advanced levels of fundraising, like evolving a donor through the annual giving program up to a major gift or a planned gift opportunity. If you don't have good data systems, now's a great time to draw a line in the sand and start improving upon those. And then it's also, while you mentioned, Jill, the opportunities with collaboration, there's opportunities to network and approach funders, not just on a grant side, but from an individual donation or a corporate gift as well. So there's certainly opportunities there, because donors and corporate partners in our community are paying a lot of attention to how we are responding to this pandemic. And so don't confuse the silence of some of these donors as apathy towards supporting our organizations. It's actually, some of them may be explicitly considering which organizations are going to be most impactful during this time.
That's great. That's great information. Well, we are unfortunately running out of time. To wrap up, I would like to say a huge thank you to our panelists. Thank you all for making the time to do this. And, Danny was just talking about that collaboration. That was one of my ideas behind this was, since we have been in this strange time, we've changed our LANO executive director roundtables to statewide. And I know some of you have been on those. They used to be, in-person coffee by city events. We're going to keep doing these statewide events. Like to partner with the AFPs to do more of these kind of things together to bring different people and different awareness. I think it's great for all of us. I don't have to tell any of you, we're in a state with a lot of need and not a lot of money. And the more we can all work together to help the people of our state and makes all of our organizations stronger. That's kind of where we're heading in that LANO direction. We're just the resource hub. We're hoping that you come to LANO when you need to know where to go for the information. If we don't know where to go, we're going to help you get there. But it's people like this and all of you in the community. Hopefully you've seen some people. You will get information. We will share the attendee list for this event with all of you after the conference. So if you want to reach out to the panelists, we're going to reach out to some other attendees. I just think that one positive, I guess, out of the pandemic is this kind of communication and the idea that we all just need to reach out to each other and not be quite so siloed in the state, which we know is a challenge. But now with this virtual idea, not that I don't want to drive to Shreveport, Lynn, but it's not necessarily the easiest drive, but I can hop on and communicate with nonprofits up there a little easier than maybe we were able to do in the past. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you all so much. I hope you will join us tomorrow. We have one more morning of sessions and we kick off tomorrow actually with Mary Ellen Slater, who has been helping us with RepCap, and she's going to talk all about virtual marketing, some of the technology, what's out there. And we're going to wrap up at the end. If you didn't get to see Joan Cronin, our keynote speaker. She's going to wrap up for us again tomorrow. She is LSU native, soon to be inducted into the Louisiana Hall of Fame, but she has been for many years the women's athletic director at the University of Tennessee. She is a fantastic speaker with lots of great information, but we've got one more day of this conference. Thank you all for your patience and hanging in there. And Mark, Josh, Lynn, and Danny, thank you so much for making time. This has been fun and fun to get to know y'all. I'll see you again on screen. Take care, everybody. Thank you.